Hey everybody, welcome back to Full Blast Garage. I'm John Strong, and this is our El Camino project. If you haven't seen any of those other videos, we got a couple of them up. Please, I thank everybody for taking the time to watch these videos. Just take another second to like, subscribe, shoot me a comment, tell me what I'm doing right or wrong. I don't care. But if you haven't seen these, I'll give you a little update. I got this big block El Camino. So it's got a 454 for $2,000. We threw a starter in it, replaced a few ground cables, and then I found out that this thing was running about 29 degrees initial timing. So the starter kept kicking back. I noticed that happening. I am going to go ahead today in this video. I'm going to get it on the world's sketchiest 4-post lift and go ahead and just pull that trans back and put a new flex plate in it. I think at this time, it's probably just a good idea to do it. Like, who knows how long this thing was running at 29 degrees initial, how many times that starter's kicked back on that flex plate. It probably is worn out. Previous owner, I think, was right. They were having starter issues, and it was all timing related, and because there wasn't enough grounds. There's nothing like when you spin this motor around in 360 degrees, there's no hard spots, nothing like that that would indicate there's some sort of internal failure. It was timing, and when you guys are messing with these engines, it's very important, set your initial. If you don't even look at the all-in, who cares? Essentially, like if it's still running and not melting down, you probably got it in the ballpark, but your initial timing is pretty important for starting and running. But I'm gonna go ahead, get this thing up in the air. We'll get underneath it, start kind of going through the process of pulling the transmission back and getting this flex plate replaced. So I got this thing in the air, and the first thing you're gonna wanna do before you pull your transmission on, I guess, just about anything that's rear wheel drive, we're gonna try and take the drive shaft out. We gotta bust these bolts loose, or 7/16 on this El Camino. I'm gonna try and do it at first with this guy in neutral, my impact driver, just see if they'll break loose. If they will, that makes it a little bit easier because I can spin this thing around and just keep going and get all the bolts. But if not, I'll probably have to put it in park or wedge something under the tire to kind of hold it from spinning. So let's see if we can get these things broke loose. Well, let's try and get a bigger gun. Maybe that'll make a difference. First, you don't succeed with the pea shooter, just grab the jackhammer. Sure, that won't hurt anything. And by jackhammer, I meant your giant 1/2-inch impact here. Let's try again on this side. Lots of times these things aren't incredibly tight, but there's a good chance this is original. Broke loose. That's what we like to see. I only had to get the Ugga Dugga out. If you're planning on reusing this U-joint, which this is the $0 budget build we are, you're gonna wanna make sure those caps don't fall off. All right, fingers crossed. Man, this might be our lucky day. Last bolt. Now, all right, sometimes these things are a little bit tricky to get out. We might have to get a pry bar. But what you essentially want to do is force the drive shaft up into the transmission just enough where you can slide your U-joint caps out of the pocket here. Yeah, this thing, I'm gonna grab a hammer and a pry bar. Just give it a little tiny tap. A little Happy Gilmore action. And I like to strike it. I'm gonna tap this thing, just tap it on the caps that are still connected to the drive shaft. Sometimes that just loosen up any kind of rust bond that's right here in between the caps. All right, trying to do this delicately. Delicately might not work. Again, you're always in danger of this thing falling too and just smashing your face. So keep that in mind when you're prying on this thing. All right, got that side broke. Oh, see, now this side did actually not break free from the holder here. You see what happened? All we did was just slide it out of the cap. That's what you do not want to happen. So what I'm going to do is slide the shaft back in there and then try and pry on it a little more without the U-joint cap coming off. So I slid that shaft back on there. There we go. Just a couple taps. This thing broke free. And we do have this thing up in the air. And there's a real good chance this transmission is tilted backwards. So I'm going to rest this guy here for a second before I pull it out. And grab a tray. Catch any transmission fluid. Falls out. And man, on some of these ultra low budget builds, I ain't gonna lie, guys, when I catch this transmission fluid, I pour it back in a bottle and just put it back in the car. This one, I think I actually got some fluid I can put back in, but hey, I mean, if it's shifting before you took it out, why not just put it back in there? It ain't gonna hurt nothing. All right, drive shaft removed. And there is your input yoke. That's what goes in the back of the transmission, and it's just a sliding, nothing bolting it in, you just slide it out. So step one complete. After removing our drive shaft, we're gonna go ahead and remove our inspection cover here. And some of you guys might run into some issues with your exhaust if you got big old long tubes, especially like this car has. I mean, if you run into it, you either gotta freaking cut them out or remove your exhaust, or just do a little delete on your inspection cover and cut this thing in two and just take it out in pieces. But it's always probably a better idea to have this thing on. It just kind of keeps the mice away and a little bit of the road grime and stuff from messing with your flex plate. So I'm gonna go ahead, zip these little 11 millimeters out and pull this inspection cover down. And if you guys can hear that in the background, that is totally a train. Back of my shop is right on a set of train tracks. Get to hear that quite a few times a day. And I did have this inspection cover off recently when we installed this brand new starter. So it does have 3 out of the 4 bolts holding it on, so that's fine. Man, this last one, I might have to get a wobble. Yep. It's right at a bad angle. All right. And by wobble, just mean a little extension that'll bend around there. Only fun thing, some of these times when you use these things, they're gonna wanna wobble off while you're actually trying to take the bolt, so. Ooh, come on, almost there. All right, that bolt was just barely on there. I don't know who put that on. I'm sure the horsepowers were shaking it loose, if I had to guess. Man, this is gonna be tight. Maybe snake this guy through. There we go. But again, this exhaust makes this a little bit of a tight job. I'm gonna go ahead and throw those 3 bolts down here in the inspection cover. And I mean, the torque converter on this thing looks almost brand new. I mean, man, it's in good shape. There's a chance we got a rebuilt trans in this. I mean, there's even still markings here on the torque converter. You know, I'm not just 100% sure this flex plate is toasted. Maybe I try and shim this thing one time and just see what happens. So I know in the directions for this starter, it says there should be an 1/8 inch of space. And we're actually looking like we're a little tight, I would say. I mean, do we try and shim it before we go full out, pulling the flex plate? So, I mean, all the teeth are there. Well, I don't think shimming this thing would hurt, so maybe I go that route, throw a shim in, see what happens. So let's reconvene after I've wrestled around on this starter for a while, because putting shims in these big blocks with headers is not fun. Not fun at all. All right, so I got my 12.11 millimeter. I'm gonna go ahead and blast this starter out. Man, these big block ones are heavy, so be careful. But luckily for me, I got all these transmission lines to hold me up. Probably don't want to do that, but whatever, it'll ride. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna slide 2 shims in there to begin with. I got 4 that came with the kit. Let's slide 2 in there, see if that makes any kind of difference in how this thing sounds. And then I'll reconvene when I'm tightening this sucker back up, because there's gonna be some wrestling. I attempted to shim this thing, no avail on it interacting with the flex plate any better. So we are just gonna move along with pulling this trans and getting this flex plate out. Let's keep on moving forward with that. We're gonna have to pull this trans mount, and possibly that will give us enough room to at least just slide this transmission back enough where we can get at the flex plate. You know, we're gonna have to take off all the bell housing bolts, but that might give us enough room where we don't have to completely remove everything from the transmission. We're probably gonna have to take loose the lines. I don't know how much slack is in any of those, the linkage, the shift linkage here, but we'll keep on working on it. Well, after the quick starter fix did not work, we're gonna keep soldiering on with the removal of this flex plate. So luckily, we got 1 bolt already lined up here that we can remove. And these suckers are pretty short. You're not gonna run into your oil pan here removing this. What you're gonna have to do, you know, is get one of these, move up front, and I got a 3/4 inch socket and a 1/2 inch breaker bar on the crank. You have to remove one of these guys, spin the motor around until another one's at a location that you can get a wrench into. You're going to need to break your flex plate loose from your torque converter. This is the mechanical connection between your engine and your transmission. So you have to, first step, break this loose, and then we'll move on to getting the bell housing bolts loose from the engine. But this is step one here. All right, let's see if we can break this thing loose. And this is a 14 mil. Oh, come on. No, this one's gonna get on there. Try to get this guy broke loose without stripping the bolt too much. That'd be nice. Oh man, somebody smoked these things on. Jeez. All right, I'm turning the whole motor over. See if I can break this thing loose at least with this. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with 3/8 to 14 mil. I'll trust these bolts. Get a little screwdriver or something maybe to stab in there and hold the flex plate. Always have a bunch of tools ready to go. Never know. And a lot of times if you can just find a hole, you can stab something through this flex plate and hold it. Turning. That is not gonna fit up in there. Oh, I'm gonna have to go quarter drive. I guess get your skinniest one. That looks like what it's gonna require. And 14 mil is the largest small socket I have. I don't know if this is gonna fit in there. We're probably gonna have to turn the motor and get this thing further away from the oil pan here. Give me a little bit of room to get an actual wrench in. Should be decently clear there. Man, this bolt's trying to act like it's rounded off, like somebody was twisting on it earlier without a full bite. Man, this could ruin your day. This thing's definitely not liking this 1/4 inch socket here. But we're gonna kind of work it back and forth and maybe we can get something to bite. Man, this thing is extremely tight. Wow. Go back and get the 3/8. Trying to be a little bit gentle with this thing because that bolt's not in the best shape. Don't really want to round it off any more than we got to. Come on, get on there. Man, I might have to put some heat on this thing because it is not wanting to break free. Heat and a screwdriver. Definitely not what I usually got to do for these bolts. I'd say most of the time they're kind of loose from engine vibration. And that kind of felt like I was just rounding it off. Oh, that ain't good. There's got to be at least a little bit left on this bolt. I mean, that's as good as you're gonna get on it. And I got this thing wedged up with a screwdriver. See if I can put a little bit of cheating on it. Ooh, just barely. That's... Woo! Oh my God, it broke loose. Jeez. That was the tightest torque converter bolt I've ever seen. I went through a glove, almost ate a wrench, but we got one broke loose. Only 2 more to go. No. And I would say that's very unusual for something to be that tight. Maybe this thing was recently rebuilt. I don't know. That'd be nice. All right, I'm gonna go up front, spin this motor over. Y'all tell me when you see a bolt. Man, I got so many lights down here, I'm kind of blind. Okay. Okay, so I think that's a hole. And there's a bolt. All right. I guess I'll just wait to change gloves until we get this job done. Man, hopefully the new Flexplate I got bolts up to this, because Chevrolet had different pads and all kinds of options on these Flexplates, and there's balance, externally balanced, internally balanced. And put the little mini cheater on here. Pray. Oh, man, I might have to get a bigger cheater. I don't want to break my hand. All right, let's go with the 21 mil. And then again, kind of got a wedge this old flathead in here. Keep the motor from spinning while we're breaking this thing loose. Oh, much easier. No heat. I would say that's more typical of what your bolt should do. And again, you only got 3 of these. And then in the El Camino, after you remove this, man, you get to lay on top of the motor, because that's the only way I can see how you access the bell housing bolts. So that'll be fun. All right. Keep an eye out. Let me know. Oh, we gotta wait. So we are, at least this Flexplate, it's externally balanced. All right. Oh, there it is. Last one. Like any good mechanic, is going to be the last bolt that gives you the most trouble. We're kind of dealing with the opposite scenario today. Man, wonder what else everybody's doing on their vacation. All my kids are out getting their nails done, getting ready for a fair tonight. This is what I'm doing on my vacation, changing the Flexplate on El Camino. Third one broke loose. Challenge complete. So now when we turn this crank over, once we got this bolt out, torque converter is not going to be spinning. Oh, I'm running into the oil pan here. All right. This thing's free, and it will slide forward just a hair. You can see we got a little space now between the flex plate and the torque converter, and it'll spin free. All right, well, while we're down here, I can show you the two bell housing bolts we can remove. Maybe. Man, this thing is very, very hard. Oh, there's the bell housing. Trying to hold the light and everything at the same time. See, this on each side of this car, this big block, is your bell housing bolt on the bottom. So what I'm gonna do is back both these out from down here. The rest of them I'm gonna access from up top. So this guy, I'm gonna back it out, and I'm gonna go ahead and just put in an all thread. So what this will do, at least help me keep the transmission lined up the way it's supposed to be. You know, I do have a trans jack and everything I'm gonna have under it, but just sliding it backwards, keep our alignment a little bit better. So I'm gonna break those two guys loose down here. And then I'm also gonna remove our trans mount. And this one's got 3 bolts. Some of these guys are just a single bolt holding them in. But I'll go ahead and get that thing taken out also. All right, so the outside 2 bolts, 14 mil, inside bolt, or middle bolt, 15 mil. See, and how many wrenches do you got in your toolbox? Thanks a lot, Chevrolet. So we got 1 loose, and these shouldn't be insanely tight. Then we gotta switch over to our 15 mil. I don't know if you guys saw that. These had a custom giant nut washer there, little spacer. I don't disapprove. Adjust my light a little, getting in my way. Whew. All right, trans mount disassembled. So if you guys ever have issues kind of right, left, back and forth, lining these things up, pro tip, get you a ratchet strap out, suck this sucker one way or the other from the frame rail and just pull it where it needs to go. Force it into place. That's kind of your best option. Otherwise, you're going to be jacking with this thing forever. But pro tip, use a ratchet strap. It'll get it where it needs to go. And once we pick up on this thing, you know, the mount will come off this cross member. We'll be able to slide this transmission back. And after we got the mount loose, I'm kind of just going down the side of the transmission here. I think our speedometer cable is going to have enough room to slide back. I believe this is a neutral safety. It was pretty taut. It's a neutral safety or reverse, I don't know, but it was taut. Just went ahead and disconnected it. But right here, our shift linkage, we're going to need to get some needle nose out. We're going to need to disconnect this because you do not want to bend this. We just got it adjusted right. So we want to go ahead and release that so we're not pulling on it. We're pulling the transmission back. So I'll go ahead and get some needle nose out, pull that little safety pin out, little cotter pin action, and put it back through there just so we don't lose it. But go ahead and take care of that. And I'm gonna go up top and look and see if the transmission dipstick is actually bolted to the engine on this truck. It might just be dangling there. So I'm gonna take a look at that. Well, after I got those bottom two bell housing bolts out, I'm gonna go ahead and put my transmission jack, you know, at the four corners of the transmission pan there. You kind of want to space it where it's actually, you know, you're not crimping the edge or smashing anything on these little 4 points that the jack supports on. This is an old Harbor Freight special here. I finally ponied up and got one of these after I just got tired of using that little adapter plate in my floor jack. So this thing seems to work a little bit better. I'm gonna get this stabbed under there, holding the transmission, and then we'll crawl up top, start working on getting the rest of the bell housing bolts out. Once you got those bottom easy two bolts out, you know, there's a real technical way to get the rest of them out. Now, you just gotta crawl in this sucker with your opening box in. I got at least a ratchet. Squeeze the rest of these suckers out from the back. But yeah, you're gonna need a ladder, especially if you're up on the 4-post. Oh, get you your best light. Make sure you don't break off your brand new master cylinder that you put in. Find these bolts and just go ahead and break them loose. And again, I got this ratchet action and a little light here kind of helps me. The El Camino the engine is very high up against this firewall. I don't know if you can get an actual socket up in here from the back, from underneath. I mean, you'd have to have a bunch of extensions and eagle eye snaking that thing through there. I don't know how you do it. Oh, that's not a good sign. First bolt, hand tight. Definitely motor's shaking everything loose, so we're gonna have to work on this ignition system. But this thing definitely has a shake to it. I'm guessing we got a fouled plug or a bad plug wire. I did see a metal strap on one of the plug wires, like, I don't know, trying to act as a shield maybe, or it had broken and they patched it like that. I don't know, I ain't never seen that. Look like if it ever touched any metal, it'd ground out, not fire. But man, this thing got some thread on it. Almost there. Almost. Don't drop it. All right. Success. We got one bolt out. I ain't gonna video me taking the rest of these out because it's pretty much the same process, but from the top, these guys are definitely accessible. This thing's got some oil on it, so we definitely got a valve cover leak up here. But I'll go ahead, wrestle the rest of these guys out from the top. So on the passenger side over here, it's looking like it's gonna be easiest to just go ahead and pull this distributor. I had adjusted the timing on this thing, so I had kind of gotten it right. What I'm gonna do, pull the cap, pull all the wires. I'm gonna redo this ignition system anyways. Pull the cap, pull the wires, mark where our rotor's pointed at, rotor, and record which wire that is pointed at, and so we can put the rotor roughly back, or the distributor roughly back in the same spot. I'm probably going to go ahead and just get one of those Reman HEI distributors. This one, I don't know. The ignition system had all kinds of issues, but they're so cheap. Why not just go ahead and put a new one in? I can keep this thing as a spare just in case something comes up. But I'm going to go ahead. So the hold down bolt on all these, it's 9/16. I'm going to break that loose and just kind of wiggle this sucker out of here. But I'll take the cap off first. All right, let me get on that. So after I got the cap off here, I'm going to go ahead. So they make a real specific tool for getting these distributor clamps off. I ain't got it. So I just use my shortest 9/16 open-end box end that I got. But what you want to do is, so I spun the motor around. I got the rotor pointing at the number 1 cylinder, so I know if I put this guy back in, or if I put the next distributor back in, wherever the rotor lands, you know, when I put that distributor back in, I just got to make that the number 1 plug. You know, I try to use the same convention as everybody else, you know, have the number 1 spark plug hole pointing, you know, at the cylinder. You can't get it close, just get it close enough. More important is make sure you stab this guy in with your vacuum canister if you're vacuum advanced. Put it in a location where you got some swing either direction so you can actually adjust your timing. I've seen people fight, you know, getting their timing adjusted because they installed it with the thing like almost up against the block or up against something on the manifold. If you do that, you know, you're just going to be wrestling, taking that thing in and out. And believe me, once you got one of these in right, you don't want to have to take it out if you don't have to, because you're trying to line up the oil pump shaft, the splines on the cam, and also make sure your rotor ends up pointed, you know, at a good spot for you to land on number 1. So if you get it in right, it'd be better to just do it the first time. And this one, I think I am going to replace this distributor. Just go ahead with some new guts. The ignition system sounded pretty horrible. And I did order a carburetor that's more kind of time era correct. This is, if I had to guess, the carburetor that's on this thing is one of them Thundermingos from Amazon, and no accelerator pump, and I get essentially nothing on it when I turn, you know, your idle, your air fuel screws at idle. It's just nothing. So any experience I've had with those Amazon carburetors, they're just junk. You're way better off pulling one out of a junkyard or buying one off eBay that needs to be rebuilt or has been rebuilt by someone reputable. You're much better off, and it's going to be more expensive, believe me. But definitely in this case, you get what you pay for, because you spend $150 on a carburetor from Amazon and it don't work. If you're outside that return window, you're done. They probably ain't gonna take it. This distributor bolt is coming out 1/8 turn at a time, it looks like. It's kind of starting to loosen up here. Normally these things they're tight for about 2 turns, then you can take them out by hand. All right, it's unthreading. Now definitely put that bolt somewhere you won't lose it. That and your hold down. If I could snake this thing out, that'd be nice. All right. And is it gonna come out? What do y'all think? Some of these suckers just get frozen here. Oh, super easy. Let's go ahead and try and knock all the trash back before it falls in our distributor shaft hole. We can take a look at the shaft if you want to here. As I spin the rotor around, I mean, there's some junk on it from me pulling it out. This engine isn't very clean, but I'd say this thing, I mean, I see wear pattern, but it's right. It's riding kind of right on the middle of these teeth. There's no chunks missing. So I'd say this spline is still good. This is definitely place it up on the shelf and say this sucker used to run at least. And definitely the ignition coil has been replaced at some point. That's not factory. I mean, it's got some wear on the rotor, but it's not horrible. A little dust. But yeah, we'll go ahead and toss a new one of these in. Not 100% sure how good the vacuum advance was working, but it's not gonna hurt it. So I believe I got this thing loose. Maybe if we definitely want to make sure we don't jam our shift linkage here. I jack up on this sucker, pull back, she'll come. Oh, yeah, I think it's kind of free. But I can't, that's the only thing, I can't go up very much. That shift linkage is still kind of in there. So I am up against it right here. Man, I cannot lift this thing anymore. You guys can see if I can let it down a little bit. So that is hitting right there. Man, there is not a lot of room. So the transmission is free. We're running into the firewall just a hair here. Try and wiggle this guy loose a little bit. I think I can lower it down just a hair. That might give me a little bit better slack here. I've got maybe, all right, a little bit more. And our shift linkage has just about cleared. I'm gonna make sure, look up top. There's nothing just kind of holding this thing up. The dipstick tube was bolted to one of the bell housing bolts, so it's not catching on anything. There's definitely not any more bolts. Is it one of the trans cooler lines not having any slack? I mean, this one's pretty tight, but I think it would stretch at least a little bit. I mean, we're definitely coming off. Man, I hate headers. If anybody ever wants you to, don't put headers on your car. So what I'm thinking it might be is these trans cooler lines. But there's about 14 junctions that's been cut into these things, and I really don't want to break it loose if I don't have to. I'm just going to keep trying to slide this sucker. Oh, I think it's trans cooler lines. Well, I guess I will break these two guys loose and then get back on it, but God, I don't want to do this. All right, let's get a wrench for those. So here are two culprits, and you really want a line wrench for this job, but I couldn't get my 1/2-inch line wrench in here in this kind of tight space. You want to break these two fittings loose. These are your trans cooler lines. Just go ahead. You're probably going to get some fluid leakage, you know, if your pump was still working, but I'm going to go ahead and break these two guys loose. That one already broke loose. Get these two loose, get them disconnected from the transmission, and then try and pull again. All right, guys, so now you can see I got those two transmission cooler lines loose. Transmission was able to slide back. This is about as far back as I can get it before I kind of run into the floorboard with the transmission, sliding it back. This looks like enough room right here to go ahead and break these bolts loose. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. You got 6 bolts or 5 bolts here and a pin. That's your locating pin for your weight on your flex plate. So you want to make sure that's all lined up correctly. But when you get this guy pulled out, go ahead and compare it to your new part. Make sure everything's spaced the same and evenly. You never know, some of these small block Chevys and big block Chevys, you know, if it's got a balance, if it doesn't have a balance, it might be something different, but just take a look at it before you start bolting it up. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these broke loose, and I'll compare the old one to the new one. Give me a minute to get this thing broke loose here. So I overlaid our new flex plate and our old flex plate. All the bolt holes, everything lines up, but man, and the weight, so we're good on that. When you stand the two of these suckers up next to each other, kind of straight up, it's crazy to see the difference, if I can get it on camera here, in the teeth. Good Lord. This old flex plate was definitely worn. I mean, you're kind of catching like half of what it's lost when you look at it this way, because half's lost on the bottom side, half's lost on the top maybe. But I don't know. I mean, it's an 1/8 of an inch difference almost. It's crazy, especially in some spots where it's really worn. But yeah, I think we're doing the right thing. I'm gonna go ahead, get the new guy. Ow, that was loud. I'm gonna get the new one bolted up, and I'll show you guys what that looks like once I got it in there.
As you can see up here, I got all Flexplate bolts installed back on the crank. Put a little bit of red thread locker on them. Got everything snugged up where it's not wobbly up against the crank. I'm gonna hit them with the wrench first, just snug them down, and then go ahead and hit them with the torque wrench. So you're gonna wanna torque these to 60 foot-pounds, and I don't use a torque wrench a whole bunch, but on a Flexplate, it's very important. You don't want this thing to be wobbly, throw your whole balance off, your starter engagement will be funky. You want this thing to be seated kind of perfectly flat up against the crank. But I'll go ahead and tighten that down, and then, man, we'll have to start pushing this transmission kind of back where it goes, back to its home.
All right, well, we got Flexplate all torqued up. And remember, we got those long all threads in there kind of helping us stay lined up. And when we start pushing this transmission back, I'm gonna try and guide the shift linkage back. Oh, it'll go back in right now. Awesome. It might be in a little bit of a bind. Not horrible though. I was worried about that shift linkage when we got this transmission back in place, if it would want to go back home or not, but looking like I at least got it through the first part of the slot here. Man, everything is so sharp under here and rusty. This is the tetanus project here. But wrestling this thing back in is probably gonna be pretty fun. Even with our all threads in there kind of guiding us, I can feel it's hitting on something on the passenger side. And on this side, we got a little bit of everything kind of to keep us from going back in. Got the cooler lines, the dipstick, the headers. Oh, that's what it was, the headers. These damn things will get you every time. Good Lord. If you ever are thinking about putting headers on your daily driver, don't do it. It's a race car. Do whatever you want to. If it's easy to get the motor in and out and everything because you're tube chassis and whatever else, go for it. Man, if you got to pull your motor mounts to snake your exhaust in, that's just a bad idea. I'm trying to get these cooler lines kind of just a little bit started while they're kind of in a decent position. Because these things look like they want to fight. That transmission really seems like it wants to go home. I mean, it's just barely a few inches away from kind of its installed position. So we probably lucked out on this one, but that all thread trick will help you out every time. If you're not planning on pulling the transmission and setting it on the floor, do something like that and it'll help you out quite a bit. I kind of got a little bit of everything on the floor here kind of fighting me. Got a catch pan full of what looks like almost brand new transmission fluid. I think this thing's had a rebuild pretty recently. All right. Might need to jack up on this thing or lower it a little, actually. Go back over the driver's side.
Especially if you guys are doing this under the car, it's probably gonna be a pretty messy job. There's a good chance it might have been our shift linkage here holding us up. And it's, oh, there we go. If I can kind of get the trans in between gears, there we go. That's lined up good enough. Man, we're pretty close. I think we're home, and that's as easy as it is. You got these all threads and a decent transmission jack. This is a pretty doable job without a lift. So there she is, she's home. I'm gonna go ahead, leave the all threads in, start from the top, get all the bell housing bolts started, and then we'll just kind of work on zipping this thing back together. But I'll leave the jack under it because we're gonna need to get the mount back in also. And the mount looks in pretty good shape. So again, another indication we might got a rebuilt trans. We got a couple bolts started down there on the bottom side. There's 3 that got to go in from the top. Let's go ahead and assume the position. Oh, this is so fun. Everybody should be a mechanic. Woo! Oh, got carb fumes right in my face. Almost making my eyes water. Dang. Gas might be a little ripe. I'm gonna go ahead and get these 3 bolts in. Then we'll work on getting that all thread out and then getting the torque converter bolted up to the flex plate. I'll see you in a second. So I've got all the bell housing bolts up top, tightened up. I still have these all threads on each side here on the lower bolts. So we're gonna go ahead and thread these guys out, put the original bolts back in. Go ahead and save those all threads because them small block Chevys, big block Chevys, they all got the same thread for the bell housing bolts, 3/8 by 16. So go ahead and just put that somewhere you won't lose it. I'm sure I will. So go ahead and thread both those out. Get the new bolts, or get the old bell housing bolts put back in, and then we'll move on to attaching the torque converter to the new flex plate. Okay, so we're gonna work on getting the, oh, before I lose my light here, I'm gonna work on getting the trans mount slid in. And we might have to just raise this guy here so we can fit the bushing back in. And this thing, man, the tail shaft on this transmission just about touches the hump on this car. It's close. So what we're hoping to do, we might have to spin this thing around a couple times. I know this thing was bolted up using the cincher bolt on the mount, and I'd like to kind of put it back in the same way it came out. So it looks like the transmission's gonna have to shift a little bit to the left. So we're not super far. I'm gonna go ahead and just get a couple of these mount bolts started. And these are incredibly way too long for what they are. Definitely not what General Motors sent in this thing. But they're long and they get a big old giant nut as a spacer. So I'm sure that works fine. But we are not very far off. I think just that little pressure I put on that transmission kind of lined everything back up. If I can find the hole on this side. So yeah, I think we are pretty much centered. All right. And I am gonna blast the middle guy home before I do the outer. So let's go ahead and get it tightened up first. And those other ones, there's kind of a lot of adjustment, and we can just smoke them home if we got to. All right. One bolt tight. 2 more to go. Then we get to move on to the good old torque converter. Which hopefully that's not a bear. That ain't good. That thing's totally not threading in. Well, that one did. So there's something holding. That just is not good. Well, if our transmission's sliding around a little bit, it's because this bolt is not threading into the transmission and tightening up. Huh. Well, it's mounted. It's got one bolt holding it and one bolt acting kind of as a, I don't know, a locating pin. I don't think it's going anywhere, but it definitely, it ain't tight. Can spin it by hand. So that's definitely gonna fall out. Huh. Well, might have to drill and tap that one for a larger size at a later date. It ain't gonna happen right now. So on this car, and I think just about every small block, big block Chevy, so you're gonna have your pads on your flex plate that are gonna line up with your holes on your torque converter. And you're gonna have 3 of them. So what you wanna do is, you know, start one, rotate your engine, skip one, and then start one. So there's 6 of them. You only got 3 bolts holding it on. So what you wanna do is get one going, do every other one so you kind of have an even torque holding on your torque converter. And again, you ain't got to blast these things on, but you do want them to be tight because these things back off, and as they're spinning, they start hitting the oil pan or the back of the engine, it'll sound like your whole car is coming apart. So you'll think you got a rod knock or something, but it's actually one of these bolts have backed out and they're hitting your engine as it spins around. But I'm gonna go ahead, get those in, get them locked in. Got to put the starter back in for, feels like the 5th time on this car. Hopefully the last. Fingers crossed, but it is asbestos. So who knows, but we're at least getting a little bit closer. I'll probably spin the engine over before I put the inspection cover back on, just in case. So last step here, we want to go ahead and get our drive shaft stabbed back in. So we're going to go ahead and, you know, put the yoke into the output shaft here. And then we're going to come on the other side and spin this thing around. Give you a little bit of light. And go ahead and bolt it back up to the rear end. So Goes in the same way it came out. Nothing special. I got this thing in neutral, so hopefully the transmission will spin with me so I can line up the rear end. And then normally it's enough to kind of hit it with the impact, tighten everything up. You don't have to worry about the wheels spinning. But I'm gonna go ahead and get that in. And be careful with your caps on your drive shaft. I've had this kind of sitting in a safe spot where it won't be messed with. So these caps get a whole bunch of little bearings in them. They fly off. You're never gonna be able to put them back in. You might as well just put a new U-joint on. Go ahead, get this guy stabbed in, and we can just about see what our starter engagement's like. This thing ain't gonna run because I got the distributor out, and it's pretty funny. I went through all that trouble of marking number 1 and everything, and then we ended up turning the motor over about 40 times to get everything lined up. So I'll have to go in and kind of get number 1 at top dead center and restab the new distributor. Not a big deal, but just thought it was funny. I just totally blanked on that and started cranking on the motor. So to get around that, I could have taken the distributor out, taken the bell housing bolt out that was being blocked, and then just stabbed the distributor right back in. And then as I turned the motor, the distributor would have been spinning also, and then that would have given me an indication, you know, right where I need to put the new distributor when I pluck that old one out. But, you know, you get moving fast, not thinking, and that's what happens. But whatever, not a big deal. So now I'm using my schlong scope here to go ahead and find TDC on number 1, just in case the marks on that balancer aren't that great. And look what we see, guys. It's kind of hard to show on camera, but that is fresh cross hatching. Either somebody took this thing apart and dingle-balled it, or we're dealing with something that's recently rebuilt. I mean, this thing, it just keeps getting better and better. But I'm gonna crank on the crank here, watch for number 1 coming up here in the bore, and then look for my mark, feel for compression, and then whenever that new distributor comes in, I can go ahead and stab it. But I just want to show you guys that real quick while I have this tool out. That's pretty neat. This thing is going to have a whole bunch of horsepower at one point. While I'm waiting on some ignition parts to come in, I think I'm going to go ahead and tackle the exhaust down here. This thing, I have a kit. I know budget blown, but I didn't want to take this thing to an exhaust shop. It'll be the same cost getting something made than just one of those kind of universal, meant for these cars kits from Summit. So I got to get this thing loose right here from the header. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and sawzall these guys off. I don't think there's any way I can get in here, and I mean, the only thing I'd do would just be trying to break them. But whatever this stupid thing is here that's attached to it, I'd end up bending the crap out of it, and then that might mess with my alignment of my new flange here. Man, you know what? I need to look at this flange real quick before I go to cutting. Yeah, I don't know why, but this collector just looked real large to me. I think I'm in the ballpark with this guy. Let's see. Ooh. Man, I don't know. I think, does this thing have a larger collector diameter than what this kit came with? Come on now. That sucks. I mean, it looks close. If I get this thing off, I don't know. I guess I just go ahead to strutting and cutting, get this thing loose, and then I'll kind of just eyeball it and see if there's a way I can make this thing kind of fit on there. But I guess we'll figure it out after the carnage.
Definitely use some ear protection, some eye protection. This stuff is super old, nasty, rusty metal. And I kind of don't know the best way to attack this. I don't know if this blade's gonna do it. Man. Gonna have to get out the death wheel. Didn't want to do that, but maybe I can kind of notch these nuts and get them off a little bit easier. Well, before I try and kill myself, let's just try and heat the crap out of this thing. Maybe if that nut's liquid, it'll come off. These things rust out so bad due to the heat cycling. Metal corrodes a lot faster when it's hot. Well, that kind of came loose pretty easy. Let's see. The threads on these things look bad. Maybe I'll get lucky on these things. Just have to heat the snot out of them. Use all my map gas. Odds, these two pipes are fused together. I'm gonna take bets on it. Definitely long-winded. We got one out. 5 more to go. All right, well, I'll reconvene once I get these other 2 out, see what it looks like, see how off my new collector is on this old one. That ain't gonna be good. The old universal kit strikes again. We got our first dilemma here. So you can see the flange on the new kit, and when you hold it up to the header on this guy, I guess it's about a 1/2 inch short. I don't know if this is meant for a 2.5 inch collector and this is a 3 inch collector. But what I'm gonna have to do is take the old pipe here so at least they can measure and then they can adapt it up at the muffler shop. I don't think I'm gonna have any luck cutting this thing off. This fluted part right here, welding it back on the new pipe. I think I'd probably just do that, leave that to the professionals. Well, at least I know what I'm working with here. I mean, it ain't in too bad a shape, and I'll go ahead and get the other side busted loose. And then I got about 6 pinholes in this header that I'm either just gonna try and hit with the MIG real quick. I hope I don't burn through. Just get it where it's not a gaping hole. Or I got this header wrap stuff that I got just as a backup. So it's an actual wet layup, and it dries and it's supposed to hold pressure, stop an exhaust leak. And that's worst case scenario. That's if the MIG won't stick to it. So, well, I'll get to moving on to this other side over here, get it broke loose, and probably find the next issue. Who knows? Staying in the spirit of my $0 budget here, I got to looking, and the inside diameter of that old pipe looked like it was just kind of perfect for getting cut off and sucked back on this new flange for this Summit pipe. I mean, look. I mean, that is pretty close. I'm gonna weld this so it seals up, kind of from this outside here. Just run a bead along there, but I gotta get everything mocked up, and then I'll mark the flange and the pipe kind of where the orientation needs to be. And we're gonna burn this sucker in, so I don't know, we saved ourselves 50 bucks going to the muffler shop there. Just reuse that part. It'll be close enough, and who cares that we snaked down from, I don't know, 3.5 or it's over 3 down to 2.5. It'll be all right. This thing ain't making that much horsepower, but alignment's not bad, and I can make that work. So just want to show you guys that. Don't ever throw anything away. All right, if you're keeping score at home, Amazon MIG, run through an extension wire that's held together with electrical tape. And let's see what we're welding to under here. So this exhaust is about the rustiest exhaust I've ever seen. But this thing's been bottomed out a few times. And if you can see we're dealing with like little bitty pinholes like that right there. I'm just gonna try and shoot some wire in those holes. Any little holes like that I see. This thing's kind of crushed, but this thing ain't really any kind of performance mobile. And I ain't about to start torquing on the headers holding this thing onto the head, or the bolts holding the headers onto the head. Those things probably break in a heartbeat. And I'd rather put new heads on this car than try and remove broken header bolts. And you can see we got another little hole right there. Oop. But I'm gonna go through and just kind of zap all those and see what happens. I mean, if the metal just disappears, okay, then I'm gonna try, plan 2 with my little exhaust wrap stuff. I'm just trying to avoid giant exhaust leaks. This thing, it ain't ever gonna be any kind of show car, but when you have just a little tiny exhaust leak, not too bad. But if it's big and it's just sitting there and ticking, and that's awful. But we'll go ahead, see what we can do about these little bitty holes. Well, we're back up top from our exhaust little side quest under there. Got everything kind of burned in down there, and then one spot, it was just so thin that it was just disappearing every time I'd hit it with the MIG. So I'm trying out this JB Weld exhaust wrap. If it don't work, then I'm gonna have to figure out welding in some kind of patch, or God forbid ever putting a new set of headers in this thing. I don't want to have to mess with that. But I don't know if you watched the last video or not, but this thing was running tip top. Now it was backfiring every 10 seconds, maybe more. The cap on it, the distributor cap, wasn't in great shape. It was pretty corroded. So I went ahead, did the right thing, bought the cheapest brand new HEI distributor on Amazon I could find that had a black cap, because that's important. You don't want the red ones. Red ones don't ever work. Now they're the same. It's just, who wants a big giant red HEI cap there in the back? You're installing this distributor. I already got the engine top dead center #1. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of stab the distributor in this orientation right here. We're gonna try and get our distributor, the pointer at a fixed position that has a spark plug terminal, and that'll be our #1. We'll go ahead and take a paint marker, mark it, or we can scratch on it, do whatever. I do like to put just a tickle of the black RTV on the engine side where this distributor seals. Occasionally I've had problems with oil leaks right there, and you'll think it's a rear main and it's actually coming out of the distributor hole. That's kind of rare, but just a little bit of insurance. Don't go crazy with it. I put just a little bit of assembly lube on your gear here on the distributor. Again, that's just with initial startup before this thing gets oil. That'll kind of help it keep from just being run dry. And continuing on with the theme, got the cheapest set of big block Chevy spark plugs they had on Amazon. I think this was like 40 bucks. Totally blew the budget on the spark plugs though. These are AC Delcos. But at least I went copper, so no kind of iridium or plutonium or whatever kind of metals they use these days. This is just your regular old spark plugs that probably would have came in this thing. But what I'm gonna do first, go ahead, I'm gonna climb back up on the engine. It's kind of my normal spot these days. Climb back up there, stab the distributor down, and then I'll grab the camera and kind of show where we got this thing located. So I did want to take you guys in here, ooh, as the ladder slides out from under me, show you guys the distributor stab. So your vacuum pot over here, you want to make sure you got decent amount of swing before you come into contact with your intake manifold or your firewall. I'm kind of maybe a little bit towards the middle of that. The rotor ended up where number one's kind of be just shooting straight forward. I mean, again, it's not the biggest deal. You just want, you know, if someone comes in here, that's kind of helpful to have number one marked, or at least have it where it's pointing at the cylinder. If you're pointing towards the firewall, you're going to be messing with somebody. But all they'd have to do is look at the plugs and route where they're going to the cylinders, and if it's correct, then they can figure it out. But this is step one. I had to turn the oil pump shaft just a hair to get this thing to kind of drop down in there perfectly. But everything's, you know, in there. This has, you know, new plugs for the HEI cap, and then I'm gonna wire in a correct plug, you know, to do away with some of this hackery here, and a correct plug for the 12 volt positive and the tach. I mean, the 12 volt positive on an HEI, that's all you need. This guy right here, 12 volts, key on and cranking, and it'll run. So I'm gonna go ahead, continue on putting the cap on this, and then I'll grab you guys once I start routing all the plug wires and all that. Distributor is stabbed, cap on, got number one marked, got all the connections redone. I'm gonna go ahead and heat shrink those connections over there that I did, just kind of taking out all the splices and everything that was already there. But I got that done, and I'll go ahead, I'm gonna start gapping our plugs here. I don't know if I can get that to focus real well. But our plugs for this HEI probably need to be gapped a little bit higher or a little bit wider than what this would have recalled with the points ignition. I think that's what these came with. I think the R44Ts, they come around 35 thousandths. I'm gonna run these out to 45, and that just gives you a wider spark. That's it. A little bit longer distance from the ground strap to the electrode. The spark's got to jump. So I'm gonna do that. Go ahead, replace all 8 plugs in this thing, and I got no idea what I'm in for here, because I mean, these headers, some of them look pretty easy, some of them I don't know. But I'm gonna go ahead, gap all these, get the plugs in, and I'm sure this thing, it won't ever be backfiring anymore. But that carburetor from Amazon is coming off first. But let's finish the ignition, kind of do one thing at a time while we got all the parts here. Go ahead, take care of that. So I've got all the plugs now in the motor. There's only a couple of them you got to wrestle with these headers. Number 8, so that's on the back side up against the firewall, is a little tight. Everything else wasn't too bad. You got to use, you know, some of them you got to just use your 5/8 spark plug socket, but with a 3/4 inch open-end box in on one side. So you got to do some of that, but other than a little extension and 3/8 drive, got it done. So this fancy Amazon spark plug kit comes with, looks like wire separators. It's got wire labels. And then hopefully it's got 8 spark plugs, because that's kind of the most important thing. Anybody ever opened one of these? Found out you only had like 7, already started the job? I'm sure it's happened. I mean, from Amazon, I've gotten used stuff before a few times, so nothing would surprise me. And I do recommend, so this kit does come with some of the silicone compound. Put it in each end of the boot. Don't go crazy. Just a tiny little dab on each side. Just helps keep water from getting into the boot in between kind of your terminal and your spark plug and your spark plug wire. This is I'm guessing a moisture vapor barrier. So I'm in the corrosion industry, and this is what we'd use if you were, having a pipe that was insulated, something like that. You rub the outside of the pipe with this, and it keeps water or moisture from forming in between that insulation area and the surface of the pipe. So again, use that. You're going to want to lay out your wires from longest to shortest and just kind of go around your cap. Your fire in order, just like every other Chevy. 1-843-6572. I'm sure you guys have seen Freiberger shirts and all that, so grab you one of those and hopefully that'll help you not forget what the firing order is on the Chevy. So I like to just kind of start grabbing them. That one's super long. This one here is probably the next longest. And just put them in order, longest to shortest. And that will kind of give you an idea how you're going to need to lay these suckers out. Some of these will be real close to the same length. So that's kind of telling you it's probably going to the same bank. All right, getting there. We got one a little bit longer than the other two, and these guys, one's just a hair longer. So I don't know if any of these are the exact same length. Maybe 2, maybe these guys. But that's it. So we got these all laid out, and what I would do, so you got some wire separators in here. I would use these if your valve covers don't have them. The El Camino, it looks like for the most part does. So I'm gonna try and route the wires through those valve covers, kind of just for a little bit cleaner look. But you just want to start on your cap where we marked our number 1. 1-843-6572. Put your plugs on and you're done. Try and route them away from the exhaust. The headers on this thing, who knows? Hopefully I can get them away from it. But I would go ahead, route all that. Oh, I'm dying. Route all that. You'll be at least done with the ignition system. So we're gonna mess with the carburation after this, but ignition system buttoned up. We'll set the timing once we got the new carb on and everything fired up. So all right, I'm gonna go ahead and get on that, and we'll be back looking at taking this carb off here in a minute. So we are putting another Quadrajet on. I'm sorry. If I'm gonna get any kind of mileage out of this El Camino, it's gotta have a Quadrajet. All right, guys, everything's in here routed about as good as I can get it. Some of these spark plug boots on this Amazon kit are way too long. They're like hitting the suspension in some spots. It's pretty bad, but I went ahead, cranked it up, just made sure all the wires were actually making connection. This thing runs a whole lot smoother than it did before, and I got the distributor locked down. Haven't
hooked up the vacuum advance yet to it. But I checked the timing, my timing light here, and man, we're initial, you know, I just dropped the thing in right at 12 degrees advanced, and I think that's where I'm going to keep it in case this thing kicks back on me or anything. Dial a little bit out, or it acts like it wants more. We can put a little more in it, but for right now, that 12 seems to be pretty good. But let's go ahead and see if it'll crank up. Man, it's night and day what this ignition work will do. See, and we're idling about 790, 780. Motor is much more steady. It was kind of jumping a little bit before. Much better. I think this thing's coming back to life. I'm back under the car for right now. I fiddled with the old Amazon Quadrajet after I got the timing set, and man, it was actually sounding pretty good. So I'm gonna take the chance that I'm the only person in history that's gotten one to run right, and just see, like, once I have this thing kind of the exhaust dialed in, the ignition, is it gonna run right? I mean, I have another carb I can put on it real easy. I mean, this would just be kind of for my own purposes, like, is this carb worth keeping on the shelf, or do I just throw it in the trash? But I have this generic Summit exhaust system that I'm gonna have to weld up, because the flanges on these headers are gigantic. I mean, if this is the stock motor and somebody just put those, oh man, the bolts won't even go through. I'm gonna have to hog those things out. Dang it. All right, well, step one, failure. Grab the drill. Well, got one through. Got another one through. Why won't this one go? Okay. It'll go, but only one direction. Okay. Not asking any questions. Just put it together. So I'm just getting this mocked up because I'm gonna have to weld this together. But as you can see, the exhaust kind of curves inward towards the drive shaft and then heads out the back of the car. And this is 2.5 inch. I mean, that's probably more than enough for what this thing is. And it's dual. I mean, I think dual 2.5 inch probably support 400 or 500 horsepower. So the question is, will this exhaust pipe kind of hang in here at least enough for me to do mock-up without having to put any tacks on it? That would be nice, because I haven't prepped the surface at all. And I'm working with an Amazon MIG welder that don't like to do too much. I think this thing's gonna hold pretty decent. So again, on these exhausts, especially these universal ones, man, leave everything loose. Don't put a clamp on. Don't do anything till you got it pretty dialed in. Those clamps, like what they give in the kit, will crush the pipe, and you'll never, well, I mean, you can get them loose when you work on it, but it's very challenging. So I think it's gonna work. I'm just gonna run a bead right in here on this edge, and hopefully that'll at least join these two together. I don't know if it'll seal it up. We'll see if I can get in there. But I think I got a pretty good chance of making this thing work. All right, so I'm gonna kind of rinse and repeat on the other side, and then we'll move the camera back to the second section of pipe. All right, now I got both flanges mocked up here. You know, the first pipe kind of makes the turn under the transmission cross member. Then our next pipe, it's not super clear in the directions which way they want you to go. I think it kind of looks cooler. You got the long straight piece right here as your next piece, and then the little kick out. I think in the future, if I add a crossover, I kind of put everything a little bit closer together there in the middle. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and run it that way. And if I do ever do a crossover, then I can just run a little short piece of pipe between these two 2.5s right here, and they're closer together. So that crossover pipe makes a pretty big difference when you're running one of these 454s. So this is kind of the beginning here, and I'm not putting any clamps on at all. I'm just leaving those things on the ground for now. I'm gonna go ahead, get the other side slid in. We'll move on to the part that kind of runs over the axle back here. We're working here on the exhaust a little more, and I kind of got everything a little bit roughed in where it needs to go. And I guess these kits that are meant for this car, they give you a little bit extra pipe. So this pipe here is about 9 inches too long, and I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of eyeball this sucker, cut it with the Sawzall, and just kind of do a little eyeball fitment under the car. You got quite a bit of room you can play with. I'm definitely leaving extra pipe. It's probably needs a little bit more than 9 inches cut off. But I'm just gonna start with that, kind of see where I go from there. I'm just kind of using a mark on the pipe here to kind of take my measurement from. We're not into thing too precise right now just yet, so use the blade with the biggest curve on it so your pipe's not straight. And just go ahead and give it a cut. Woo! This thing's jumping all around. I might have to get a sharper one. Just about got the job done. I think this might be the last cut this thing's got in its life. Perfect, straight as an arrow. Now she got a little angle to her, but nothing the old file won't fix. But this ought to be fine to at least test up in the system and kind of start to get everything where it needs to go. But I'm gonna test fit this, make sure I don't have to cut any more off, and then just kind of loosely start putting the clamps in, kind of hold the exhaust up. You guys can kind of see on this side, this is kind of what I'm working with here. So I got the collector pipe going back to a straight run that has a little bit of a kip up in it to the muffler here. And it's an offset in, center out. Then there's 2 pipes that make up, you know, the over the axle part. And I was trying to get this thing kind of as mocked up as close as I could
to being parallel with the axle tube. And I mean, after I hang this thing, it'll be close, but it's going to be pointing down a little bit. Not 100% jazzed with that, but hey, it's going to have to work. But I ended up taking, you know, the 9 inches out of that straight piece of pipe up there up front, and you know, everything kind of mocked up decently, at least enough for this rig. So I'm going to go ahead, run some clamps on this stuff, start kind of, you know, at least looking at where I'm going to put hangers. But man, I just got to get this thing to have some kind of exhaust on it. It's way too loud and ridiculous to ride around with just open headers. So I'm going to go ahead, keep on mocking that stuff up. When I got something closer to the finished product, we can kind of do a little walkthrough what I came up with. Okay, I kind of got everything buttoned up on the exhaust. It's putting about 1/4 trans fluid in it. Got a little crazy with the funnel down there, so that's a little bit of a spill. But let's check out this exhaust. And if you guys didn't know, I was professionally trained by the great Ray Charles, who's my mentor on this welding apparatus here. So this is kind of what you get when you're using flux wire through an extension cord with bad grounds on an Amazon MIG. So expect it to look just about like this. But I had to snake it down from 3.5 to 3, and then I kind of just got everything tucked up real close to the floor here. I'd say this Summit kit for these 73 El Caminos is pretty good. It follows the floor real well. It goes right over the axle, out the back, and I just kind of trimmed them so they're not going all the way, because it would just about go to the tail lights in the back. I'll show you all that. It's a little bit too far for my comfort. I don't want hot exhaust just blasting the tail lights until I can figure out a tailpipe configuration I want. But you see here, just mounted this guy for now just to kind of one of the old existing exhaust mounts, and bolted it up, isolated it, and this thing's sturdy. But the pipe did go all the way up into this bumper pocket where it was kind of, you know, just going to shoot right on the tail lights. I'm planning on hopefully getting a curved piece, or maybe just going down a little bit coming out the back. Probably go up from 2.5 to 2 3/4 or 3. Just something that looks a little better than the pipe here, you know, hanging out under the quarter. I'm not a real big fan. I think it kind of sounds funny normally. And sometimes, man, this exhaust gas will just kind of swirl in here. It's not really good for you. I like to get it where it actually exits out from under the car somewhere. But I'm gonna go ahead, get her down off the 4-post, and I'm gonna start this thing up. We're gonna cruise it around. I kind of just want to see how this Amazon carb performs, you know, with a load on it, driving it around with the ignition properly tuned, because I'm pretty sure I saw someone in the comments say that there's probably plug wires arcing. I'm guessing that's what was happening, was causing it to backfire so bad. But let's go ahead, get this thing down off the 4-post, and I ain't started it in a while. So we'll see what the cold start's like and get this thing rolling. Okay, we got her back down on all 4. And let's see, man, this thing's been sitting for a little bit. Gave her 3 pumps. No. Well, it ain't gonna cold idle, but three more. Gotta figure out how to set the high idle on this Amazon car. Let's let her warm up for a minute. Can you guys see that in the camera?
The high beam indicator actually works, I guess, in this car. But I did notice every gauge works. The only thing, there's no indicators on the shift. This car has these park, reverse, neutral drive. None of that stuff lights up. And I do not believe there's any vent. Maybe. Who knows? Well, I don't hear any egregious exhaust leaks, so we're going to count that as a W. I mean, I'd say it don't sound half bad. These are just old Summit turbos. What a difference a little bit of ignition work makes. Holy crap. This thing rides like a dreamboat. Listen. Man, something's rattling behind me. But no backfiring. Cruising. I did do just a little bit of bending on the linkage that opens up that secondary air vent on this carburetor. It wouldn't open all the way, so I just went ahead and bent it wide open, so it'll definitely open up all the way when the secondaries kick in. Brakes are good, alignment still bad. Hopefully this thing is just tie rods need to be adjusted. People like to fiddle with those things when they mess with the suspension, and not the biggest fan. Just kind of leave them alone. And if you're doing tie rods, do them one at a time. And it kind of help you line back up to where you're supposed to be. Woo! It's going sideways. Good Lord. I'm gonna lose control right here by the railroad tracks. This thing might have 345 horse. Dang. Definitely a rattle box right now. There's, I think, a piece of metal back here that goes up against the rear window. Don't sound like it's tightened down. Slide this thing around. Woo! Oh, she's going now. We're going 35, about 40. Well, make sure the cops ain't down here, because this thing ain't exactly street legal, if you know what I mean. I just goose on it. What will it do? It'll just burn the tires down. That's what it'll do. Ooh, man. This thing, I can smell rubber burning. Jeez. It's got some life left in it, that's for sure. Man. I still have that extra quadrajet carb. I don't know if I'm gonna put that on just yet, man. I might just save that, put it up on the shelf. But look at this. This is no brakes. I just hit the gas, and look at these lines here on the road. It was pushing me all over the place. But yeah, she's gonna be a burnout machine, that's for sure. Don't want to put a whole lot of heat in those tires. They look like they're from the 80s. It'd be my luck, I'd have to push it home on a flat 1/8 mile from my house. Not a bad little car. So $2,000, a starter, a Flexplate. We're into it, a Flexplate. Wheel cylinder. Made a brake line, and installed a master cylinder. And I mean, man, if you were in a pinch, you could drive this. You really could. Just the way it is, clean it up a little more. It wouldn't be completely embarrassing. But we're about to do
some cosmetics to this thing, make it look good. I'll probably at least replace the shocks, make it ride a little bit better. Man, when I'm done with this thing, it's gonna be a solid little car, and it runs pretty dang good. Man, well, that was quite an uneventful ride, at least for this thing. It ain't shooting out them backfires like a Tommy gun like it was last time. Oh man, I think we finally got the heat off of us from the cops. It's been about a week ago, but this thing's running good enough where I would honestly not be scared to drive it on the road with a new set of tires. And that is light years ahead of where we started. And if you don't know, this thing was non-running, starter wouldn't engage, had a few electrical issues. I've kind of just gotten it to the point where it's a runner, and it's got exhaust on it now, just not straight open headers. And I'm sure it leaks a spot here or there, but I'm gonna eventually get this thing in a real exhaust shop for tips, and I'll just have them just go ahead and put you a little tack wherever you see some exhaust leaks, because I ain't doing it. I did enough crappy welding on this thing for 3 cars, so it's kind of at a state where I'm gonna start working on the cosmetics. And if you can't see, there's a giant hole in the roof of this thing. I'm gonna do it, you know, the wrong thing the right way, I guess, is, you know, how I've always termed it. This thing's not ever gonna be worth a whole bunch of money to anybody, so we're gonna cut a few corners on our body work, but it'll be good enough where it should last for a long time. I mean, we're gonna use short strand fiberglass on almost everything, and guys get 20 years out of that before they get cracks, even in some of this real thick stuff that we're gonna do. But we're gonna body work it, paint it. I'm gonna wait, show y'all the color that I'm, went to on this thing, but trim's gonna get deleted. I chose the Kraggers to go with as an easy choice because I had 4 of those. I only had 2 rallies, and they're not giving those away, so we're gonna church up those Kraggers because I don't really like them, but I think if you paint them a certain way, you ain't gonna be able to tell what they are. So, I hope you guys are enjoying this project. It's coming along. It's gonna get there sooner rather than later. We're gonna have it where it's roadworthy. I'm gonna get a title for it. But again, man, I appreciate everybody taking the time to watch another video from Full Blast Garage. Here pretty quick, this thing will be looking pretty nice, and we're gonna really be putting it on full blast. But thanks again. Take a moment to like, subscribe, comment. Especially, man, if you know something that I'm doing wrong on this thing, let me know. But again, thank you. Appreciate all the time you're taking to watch these videos, and between now and the next time you see me, just go out and do something that makes you happy, like drive around an old clapped out El Camino on a set of railroad tracks, then do a burnout. That's pretty fun. But yeah, I'll see you next time.